try not to budget this time.
No, I don't. All right, it is 5:22. Do you have any changes to this agenda?
We need to mark Pam was absent.
Already done.
I'm sure you did. Yeah.
Do I have to make?
I make a motion to accept the change.
Second.
Okay.
There it is, perfect. And we can jump ahead for something if you need a little time.
If I can just get
Yeah, yeah.
plugged in,
Yeah,
that'd be
fair
great,
enough.
appreciate it.
Mark, do we have any guests online?
At the moment, no.
How about we go to a planning meeting update?
It'll take a while.
That'll take a while.
But that's okay, because maybe Mark would benefit from sort of hearing, we can all start with the ideas that we came up with. Do you want me to do that? I pulled it up, so.
Go for it.
Heather, I'll have you do the AI translated and stuff, but, so yes, Lynn and Heather and I got together and we just brainstormed and kind of tried to connect the dots of all the things that might happen and the function of the building and things like that, that we had planned on us doing. So I'll just go through hopefully 3 minutes and kind of, put that on the recording. So for storage, do we have enough storage space to meet the overall needs, and is it spaced throughout the building in an optimal way? Just brainstorming. We also had thought about the lockers and how many lockers we have to, maybe there's a set idea for that, but that also has come up in conversation. Bathrooms, I think we corrected ourselves that there might be a bathroom, after we looked a little more thoroughly, there might be a bathroom, so some clarifying there that is closer to the lobby. So that mostly for when seniors might be congregating in the first space, that they have a quick bathroom and they don't have to go to the wet locker rooms. So that was the idea there. Fitness center, is there room for a class, and how do we make sure that that is available for class space? Admin offices throughout, does that make sense? Is it big enough? Should we consider that? Senior focused space, we feel that we need more designated space for a senior population, just really keeping that in the forefront of our mind as where are people going to be and, sit and knit or sit and talk or read the paper or do the crossword, that kind of thing. So common seating areas, small gathering spaces, child supervision, we thought it would be used in a multi-use room or on one end of the walking track, but that's just how we see it. When we're talking about it. And then the bathroom will need to be accessible for that and make sure that people can go, 2 people can go with the child. I imagine that's typically how it goes. So walking track, should we consider making that more of a multi-use space with square footage at the sides and the ends? Or maybe it's already existing that way. And then congregating in the hallways, we want to be aware that currently there could be congestion between the gym and the locker room. And Mark, I'm sure you see that in square footage in a very functional way. So that's the first floor hallways. So that was the brainstorming that we did.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really good aspects to a lot of those questions and comments, and I think it would be good to maybe sit down with the plan and workshop a little bit more on how that, I think it's getting into a level of detail, which is great to get into. I think it's it'll help us refine the plan. It may even be a little bit, if we are spending time in that level of detail, we just have to realize that at a certain point, we need enough to just continue the development of the concept to get it to a point where we can share it, price it, share it. But I think we can still continue to refine the plan and address a lot of these issues without any major impact to the plan itself.
Okay.
That's great.
And then the piece that I worked on was to address the operating budget overview that we have discussed, and this was purely just meant to be a starting point. I used ChatGPT to kind of just give us a starting point. You can see the criteria I entered in at the top. Basically, it was for an approximately 50,000 square foot community center located in Mid-Coast, Maine, serving a population of about 10,000, including a swimming pool, gymnasium, fitness center, and meeting rooms. So based on that, this is what AI created for us. I went through, and kind of went through the details based on like what we had talked about and refined some of the numbers. But for the most part, I kept them as they were, but you can see kind of like, I also asked it to, further define like how the revenue was estimated, and also like, what was it, like the staffing, so the salaries and wages, just kind of what that was based on, like the number of lifeguards and that kind of stuff, so that's also included in the packet. So yeah, so like I said, it's purely a starting point because I'm sure some of these numbers, some could be way off, it's just really just a place to start. Yeah, and so as you can see, it did come out with a net loss, but again, I think it's just a place for us to start a discussion as to where do we definitely want to, you know, what do we want to keep, what do we want to take away, add, and I will say the revenue model that that was provided in this model is different than the South Portland one, because the South Portland one, from my understanding, the walking track is free to residents, like you don't actually have to pay to use it. Based on this model, you have to pay to get in the door. So whether it's a day use pass or a membership, whatever type that looks like, there's nothing free here. And I feel like that might be an important aspect to consider, because when I looked at South Portland, their walking track was free and a lot of their senior activities were also free. So that's that.
Is it free for anyone or free with somebody that has a membership?
Like what aspect
Just-
do you mean?
You mean the walking track?
Yeah, I mean,
Based on what I read online, it was free for South Portland residents. Like if you were a South Portland resident, you could walk in and use the
so I
walking
have to
track.
just walk in and show you your license.
That's based on what I read online, that's what I understood it to be.
It's the way the Brunswick is. You just have to sign up for their thing, prove that you live in Topsham, Brunswick or Bath, I think, and then you can use the walking track. At the website.
Marcy, do you have any ideas that things we should change or adapt on the budget so that it can be helpful when we move towards presentation?
Probably, I'd be happy at some point to sit down and go through it a little more, like something that jumps out at me is maintenance supervisor 65,000, and then it's got custodial maintenance staff of 35,000.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, so maybe if we fine tune some of those, it won't be,
And the
At quite the lowest.
lifeguards are making bank.
I mean, I would
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
think we could probably
Well,
get
that's why
away
I
with
dug into that one.
one maintenance position for the building, but it might be, time you pay salary and benefits, it's probably those two numbers combined.
well, and we can go back to the conversation that you had with ChatGPT and say, can you change this to this, and that's that.
Yeah.
So we can fine tune that, that'd be great.
I wonder, this is not anything I'm recommending, but I wonder what it would, because of what when we met with the Y. I wonder what it would look like if you took a pool out, and I'd like to see whether it actually has positive revenue versus negative. Just to have in our back pocket at some point.
Mark, what are your thoughts on the insurance aspect of it? Property workers' comp at 80,000, page 4, I guess it is technically.
Yeah.
Under maintenance and repairs and then insurance.
And I'd let Mark jump in more than maintenance repairs, but I bet at least initially we would need 150,000. I mean, obviously we wanna put some money away in reserves when they have to be replaced, but a brand new $30 million building, I'm sure. we could-
Correct, yeah, they, somewhere, I think I've heard you gotta really be budgeting anywhere from 3 to 5% annually on the asset cost of a building to just, not that you're gonna need it all at once, but otherwise you'll end up building such a deferred maintenance that hitting that lump sum all at once is a big number, so.
What was the percentage?
3 to 5% of the asset value.
I thought you said 36.
Oh, no, not 35, no.
But I mean,
Then the insurance part, we have like one blanket policy that covers the whole town for all the stuff we do.
yeah,
The most expensive part is the police liability.
yeah,
Now, probably I mentioned the pool, it's probably more expensive for the insurance without a pool, but we can run it by Maine Municipal and ask if they
Yeah.
have ballpark ideas of how much it would add to our insurance to have a rec center with or without a pool.
yeah, I mean, that kind of seems like a lot to me, but I don't have that expertise.
I will also say that if you, when at some point in the past, the Mid-Coast Athletic and Rec Complex was the one being proposed for Brunswick. They have a whole operating model on their website on the report. And so that may also be a reference because it's gonna have very real numbers for this area. And so they put, and I'll share
Thank you.
right here, but it's there's a whole PDF of the report that you can look at, and it does have some scenarios of rental income and things like that, what you might be able to get for these facilities, so.
Before we move on, can I just confirm, because I think I heard this over on the side, did you ask Heather to run it again, Steve, without the pool?
Yes.
I think it would be a great idea, you know.
I'm just writing it down under follow-up action steps. And do we want to have somebody schedule time with Mark Waltz before the next meeting to see what specific line items we might want to adjust, or is
Yeah,
that too
what-
soon for them?
What does Mark's schedule look like is a big question.
Let me find something.
There's so many though, it's like this lifeguard thing is,
Well, yeah, that would, if we don't pull, we don't
they're
have to worry
recommending
about
2 per shift. On the weekend, 2 to 3, like I don't even know what the rules are based on that, I've never seen more than
Right.
one lifeguard at a.
Yeah, there were a lot of
Center.
assumptions.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the hours that it was covering was also a large number of hours, so.
It's better to be
Right.
high than low.
that.
Absolutely.
Right, and now we see that it's 36,000 square feet and 38.9, so we can maybe say 40. The population's accurate, 10,000 folks.
Yep, I think it's 97, 64 or something.
Right.
Then if we just pump water from we go to the sports side, and we pump water from the Chicago, save the water.
Well, this is very cool, Heather, thank you.
Unless there's any more questions about what we met, I mean, I can touch base with Mark to sit down and, you know, whoever, Heather and Leslie, if your schedules allow.
Let's tighten it up.
I know,
But you guys can tighten up too.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Alright, I'll initiate an email to Mark and we'll go from there, with that. Thank you. Yep.
And I guess we can head back over to Mr. Mark Lee.
Okay, very good. I will share my screen here and I'll pass out, I think you all got a copy of it, and it's awfully hard, so you need your readers, if you've got them. So, you printed it out already?
Yeah.
All right, you guys have it,
Yeah,
so good
thank
enough.
you.
All right, if you don't have one, there's one, you have a copy here. And I'll share them, it's basically bigger than what that shows. Oh, you need to promote me, yeah, there we go, thanks, Mark. Not yet. Let's see. Still not. Do you see me? You see me on the Zoom, right?
Oh, I gotta promote you I changed the sharing, but I forgot to promote you.
Ah, there we go. That's better.
Mark, before you start, can you clarify something for me? Mark Lee?
Yep.
So I'm looking at our last concept plan,
Yes.
and I'm looking at, the operations that you sent out, costs that you sent out today.
Yep.
So if you look at the square footage, for 1 story.
Yep.
It's comparable to what's on the concept design.
Mhm.
But when I look at the 2-story, it has building area of 38 square feet of 38.9.
Mhm.
Whereas on 2-story concept design, we have 50,000 and some change.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure where the 50,000, it's not 50,000 square feet, so I don't know, if somebody did an outline around something more than once, you don't count the gymnasium twice, for instance, and that's probably, 10,000 square feet right there, so I'm not sure where that
Okay,
came from.
so we need to go by the
Numbers on the page. that-
38.9?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
thank you for that.
Yep, no, that's a very helpful comment.
And it's actually a 2-part question. What we're about to go over, is this designated to either of the sites, or is this just?
The most expensive site, so you'll see down
Okay.
the very last line is Division 31 site work.
Yep,
And we explored 2 costs, the last time John brought the numbers. And so I plugged in the more expensive of the site development costs.
okay, gotcha, thank you.
All right, now I think we're in good shape here.
Which ones are more expensive?
The fairgrounds, because we had so much more utility to bring in to the site itself, so. So this compares the 2. That was one of the primary pieces of information you folks had, how much a premium is it for a 2-story versus a 1-story? And it's interesting, in some ways, it was an enlightening exercise. I didn't know what the outcome was gonna be, and it's different for every building type, but you can see that the building area is slightly larger for the 2-story, which makes sense. We've got more circulation space, we've got an elevator, so you're gonna have a little bit larger of a total building area, but your footprint is smaller. But it's interesting that it's not smaller by a lot, but if you look at the roof area is essentially the same as sort of your footprint. That's, if you were to look down from the sky and you sort of trace all the roofs, that's kind of the footprint of the building itself, and that's an important feature. So that 30,000 square feet is smaller, obviously, than the 38,000 square feet total. So you have approximately almost 30, or rather 8,500 square feet of the 2nd story. Most of your area is still on the first floor. It's the 30,400 square feet. So that just shows you a little bit of how it's stacked, and that most of the area is still on that first floor. The 1-story is 36,000 square feet. That is its footprint. So your efficiency, is in smaller amount of roof, an increase in wall area, but not significantly. And then where we start to get into some of the additional costs, you're gonna have elevated slabs for that 8,000 square feet is gonna cost us, because now we have to actually support it up above. So we've taken concrete that we would pour on the ground, and we've then taken and we put it on a 2nd story. So we had to frame something to hold that. And it's a lot less expensive to put concrete on the ground than it is build a whole structure to support all that concrete in the floor up above it. It didn't change the volume of the building a lot, which I was also surprised at, but because you have, the gym is already a high volume space and the pool is a fairly high volume space, there really wasn't a lot of volume that was saved by going one way or the other. And so that's also a consideration. And then part of that volume and efficiency is looking at the wall area. And the wall area for the one story is, like I said, it's a little bit lower than 22,175. The wall area for the two story is 24,300. So that's and what this does then is we go down through every single piece of the building to develop what ultimately the total costs are for this, and to the extent we know them now. And so I'll try to go through it without getting too much into the weeds of the detail. But so you can see in that first division, and these are divisions that contractors use. Division three is concrete, so we look at the foundation walls. And again, we have the foundation's a little bit smaller on the two-story. Our footings, because we have a more compact plan, the footings, there are fewer footings in the two-story. And the slab on grade is smaller in the two-story as well. And so, but we have an elevator pit that we have to build on the two-story, so that adds a little more cost. But so you can see that it's marginally more expensive on the two-story than it is on the single story for the concrete, the amount of concrete in the building itself. And again, so not a significant amount. When we're talking about $29 million building, you know, the $60,000 for concrete is pretty close. It all adds up. For the brick, Division 4 is masonry, and so for the masonry, again, a very small difference. We have essentially we use 50% of the total exterior wall. Because the wall exteriors were so similar, that cost is also pretty close. So it's about $37,000 or $38,000 difference there. Keep in mind what we'll see when we get to the very bottom of adding all these up. This is sort of a quantity of concrete or quantity of brick that includes the cost to go out and hire a mason to build that. So this is what the cost of the brick and the labor to install that brick is. At the very end, you're going to see what all of the added costs are, because the contractor has mobilization costs to get there. They have an overhead profit. They have insurance that they have to pay for in bonds. That is not reflected in these unit costs, but we will aggregate all these unit costs and then add on these pieces on top of that. So, and that adds usually around 30% or more to the cost of this. So keep that in mind as we look at these costs. But the next division is Division 5, which is metals and steel. And here you can see a fairly significant difference, because the amount of structure that we need to support the second story increases, and so there you've got, you know, around $300,000 worth of difference. Again, that 300,000 grows to 4,000 and change when it gets added all the way up. But that's a significant difference, that the two-story is more expensive because of all the steel that we have to do. So that's more. The next one is not significantly different. It's wood, and so Division 6 is always the wood. So we have a little more roof edge on the two-story than we do on the single story, and that's accounts for the difference there. And why we put wood on the roof edge is we build the top of the roof usually out of some form of steel, but then when we attach the flashing to the top of the wall, we have to put wood blocking around the entire perimeter of the roof. So that's what that blocking number is for. The Division 7 is our barrier that kind of encloses the envelope of the building itself. Like I said, what surprised me in doing this was the exterior envelope is is pretty close in terms of the 2 stories a little bit more, but not a lot. So not a lot there. Oh, I guess going back up to the metals that in that $300,000 difference, some of that is you can see the elevated walking track, right? So that's $129,000 in the elevated walking track. That's a part that we've all talked about. And then we have the 2 additional stairs, and so that's $100,000 right there. And so that accounts for most of the difference in that. There's a slight difference in terms of the roof deck. It's a little less on the 2-story than it is on the single story, but that's sort of where it counts. If we have those stairs, the actual steel stairs, and the elevated walking track. So that accounted for that difference. As I said, the Division 7, which is that envelope, that's pretty close. The openings, also pretty close. Right now we're, because we haven't put in the design every single window, but we're using 25% of the wall area, which is usually it's anywhere between 20 to 40% of a wall is the amount that we consider for openings for windows. And when you have large spaces like a gym and a pool, that ratio goes down. You just don't have as many windows and volumes like that. So that's we've assumed 25%. So and so those numbers again are fairly comparable. It's about $60,000 difference in the openings, again, most of that's attributable to the wall area itself. Division 9 is finishes. It's mostly so that this is really the interior fit up of all the walls and drywall on the inside of the building, ceilings, flooring, the pool deck, the gym floor. So that has about a $200,000, not quite, maybe $180,000 difference on that. So all of these are marginally different. Again, they don't stack up to be a huge number. Most of that's just attributable to the square footage. That one is the 2-story is slightly more square footage overall than the single story. The Division 10 are the lockers. Right now we've identified 100 lockers in the plan. Lockers are about $500 a piece, whether they're a stacked 2 locker per 15 inches, or whether they're one tall locker, doesn't matter. They're still about $500 per unit. And so if they're half height lockers, that's 200 effective lockers that you have. But this assumes 100 units. Toilet partitions, toilet accessories, shower accessories, these are all just parts of building up the toilet rooms and shower rooms. We have one operable partition that we're showing in the multi-purpose room, so we can create the 2 separate smaller spaces within that larger space. And that operable partition is about $15,000. You can get them more, but that's what we. So that number is the same for both. That there's no difference in terms of the number of toilets, the number of lockers.
Mark, what's the miscellaneous under Division 10?
Yeah, that at this point, because there are other things in Division 10 that we likely will encounter, it's just a placeholder to say we haven't designed everything yet, so we want to make sure that we've got enough covered for other equipment in Division 10. Division 10 is one of those equipment numbers, if you will. So that's just a placeholder because not everything's been designed, and we knew in that division we were gonna need. A lot of them, we've broken down the takeoffs and explicitly know what a lot of these numbers are, and we've made assumptions on some of these, and so we just wanted to make sure that we're covering what we think we're going to encounter.
Okay.
And what was that section called?
Division 10 is specialties, I think it's what it's called. Yep.
That'd be like water fountains, if you wanted one of those in the building.
Water drinking fountains are already covered in the plumbing number. So we're required by code to have drinking fountains, and most of them are now 2 height. We have the accessible lower and then the taller one with the bottle filler.
Nice.
So, and those are in here already in these. Then we have an equipment number for kitchen equipment, and so, thinking of, we need a range, we need the hood for the range, and then we have other appliances such as the refrigerator, we have the dishwashers and things like that. So there's a fit up of kitchen, and some of it's semi-commercial. We don't have a full commercial kitchen, but we do still have requirements because it's gonna be used for preparation of food for the public, that it actually has to have certain safeguards in place, and so that's for that. So what we specify is equipment that is provided by a food service equipment supplier. And that number covers that amount. Division,
That's gotta be the vent too, right?
correct, it's that fire suppression hood that you need and the makeup air unit that's required for the amount of air that you're exhausting from that space. Correct, yeah. And hand sinks and things like that are not covered in plumbing, they're actually covered in the kitchen equipment.
So like if we had a walk-in cooler type thing,
Correct,
yeah, okay.
yeah, that's exactly it.
Dish pit.
Yep.
good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Okay.
think you're gonna have 4 mixers and things like that, but yeah, probably some pretty close to the equivalent we saw at St. John's, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah, they have a nice setup there.
Division 12, we have window treatments, and that just looks at the total square footage that we have as windows established above. Casework allowance, that's for any, like in here, for instance, we have cabinetry, and so that's another word for cabinetry is casework, so you might have some of that. So right now we're carrying 30 linear feet, and so right here we've got probably about 12 linear feet, so giving you an approximation. We're not carrying a lot in the building, but we're carrying some. Gym equipment, 110, that's your backstops, your backboards, your divider curtain, and that comes to, and floor inserts, and so that's about 110. Pool equipment, again, we've got, similarly, we've got equipment, scoreboards, things like that in the pool area as well. That's $60,000 for that allowance. And then for the bleachers, we've got the linear foot approximates to 210 seats in the gym, about 180. We have one less row shown right now in the pool. And so we're showing the numbers for those at about, it comes out to about $200 per seat on that. So again, not a significant difference in that. Most of it's in the window treatment just because of the different area that we're using with the number of windows that we have on the exterior of the building.
Mark, quick question?
Yeah.
Gym equipment does not include fitness room equipment. That's-
Correct, it does not. That's a good point. So like cardio equipment, weights or things like that is not included in that gym equipment.
Correct,
Yep.
so it's not in this budget.
Yeah,
That
that's-
would be a separate expense.
Yes, good, that's an excellent point. So, and I'll explain that when we get a little further down. So what we like to do is, this is what we call the hard cost. This is what the contractor has to provide. And so, if you take the building and kind of shake it, you know, everything that falls, all the chairs and stuff like that, that's furniture and equipment and fixtures, things like that, that are not considered part of this hard cost. And so there are soft costs for furnishings, fixtures, equipment that is not considered as part of this. Other things for technology that you might want, it's not considered as part of this as well. So that's a good point. And you wouldn't want necessarily a contractor to carry equipment like that. You potentially are gonna pay a larger markup for the contractor to have the responsibility for installing furniture. They'll do it for you if you want, but you pay for it. Elevator, the actual elevator itself, because we've already bought the enclosure with the rest of the building, but the actual elevator is $65,000 for a 2-stop hydraulic elevator. The sprinkler system is about $7 a square foot right now for a wet sprinkler system, which shocks me every time I see these numbers and how much construction costs have grown. Plumbing right now, we're at about $14 a square foot, and consider all the plumbing, the drainage, the supply to the bathrooms and kitchens and things like that in the building itself, and roof drains. And then the premium for the pool system itself is about $250,000. And that doesn't, again, these are all identical whether you're in the 2-story or the single story. Same thing with the HVAC, there's no significant difference in the number of spaces. And so it's about $60 a square foot right now, including building controls. And so that's for all your ventilation, all the duct work, and for the heating systems in the building itself and air conditioning systems. And then electrical, which is your lighting, fire alarm systems, power, communications, and all of that is about $40 a square foot. And we carried both of those in all of these at approximately the same amount because you're not putting a lot of those systems in the stairs, and the expansion from the single story to the 2-story doesn't require significant more. There's a small little heater in the stairwell. You're not providing full conditioning in a stairwell. So we've carried the same amount for both the single story and the 2-story. And then, like I said, the site work would carry the larger lump sum amount. So if you've got the notes from what John had, all we did was take that number and plugged it in here from the site work contract value. So if you added up all
Can I
of,
back up to HVAC for a second?
yeah, please.
So we have a new climate action plan that says we're supposed to consider heat pumps, geothermal, and what's this estimate, what type of system?
This is a conventional system, so you would think of as air handling units and VAV, I don't know, variable air volume. So you have centralized air handling units then that distribute to, in these rooms, for instance, you have a box in each room that controls the amount of conditioned air that you're bringing into each of those rooms. So it's a fairly conventional system. It's not a geothermal system, which would carry a premium. And so if we want to consider that, then we just need to add a premium for a system like that.
How much would that add for geothermal?
That's, so for building it of this size, let me just kind of do a quick calculation here.
I'll make a comment as you're doing that, Mark. I was just thinking it for fundraising, gym seats and lockers. Those are good things to put people's names on them.
The lockers
You know,
that surprised me.
Buy a locker, buy a seat,
Yeah.
and have your name on it.
Name the locker.
Name a locker. And bricks, right? Let's actually do the bricks outside the building.
It's like we should do windows.
It adds about somewhere about $1 million to $1.5 million for like going with the geothermal system.
And then I think, like, these two buildings use natural gas, but I don't think either one of the sites we're talking about have natural gas.
Right.
So what would be the fuel source?
So you would, so if you didn't do geothermal, so you either have oil or a bottle plant for gas on the site. So and both are fairly equivalent in terms of the cost of it. But you'd have to have several gas, either buried or above ground, manifolded together for that. And then the other option is using air source heat pumps in some combination for a facility like this. The challenge is those work great when you have smaller rooms with the current technology that's sort of you see right now ubiquitously everywhere when we say heat pumps, and people understand the sort of wall units and outside condensing units, but you've got very large, the gym and the pool in particular. The pool requires dehumidification and you have to really be thinking about the environment for that, and those require large centralized units. And so a centralized geothermal system could work better than an air source heat pump system. So.
And then the top of the building, any opportunity like rooftop solar, would that help with anything or not?
Yeah, it would definitely, you could offset your utility bills for both. We even see domestic solar where you're actually heating the water that you're going to use for showers. If you had a high demand for domestic water load for heating your water, we see paybacks anywhere from 5 years to 7 years, and then level investment for PV for the solar voltaic panels. So regulatory climate has changed significantly in that regard lately, and so, but it used to be that those were very attractive paybacks, somewhere around, the 7-year range as well, and so, what we've seen a lot of people do is make sure that the weight of the panels can be accommodated on the roof, and then, some people would work with companies like, that used to come in and they would lease out the space for the solar panels, and then after the salvage, after 20 years, you get whatever life left there was on the solar panels, and you would agree to buy your electricity from them, so you would host essentially their panels on your roof, and you didn't have any upfront costs. They agree that they're gonna sell you electricity at or below market rate, and then after 20 years, whatever value there is on the solar panel that you just keep. Otherwise, you can go out and buy the panels yourself.
And this roof would need extra design to be able to hold solar panels?
Not a lot. So normally the snow loads for these roofs, were anywhere from 40 to 60 pounds per square foot. The typical weight of solar panels doesn't get above 5 pounds a square foot, so we do have to just design. There would be a slight premium for the steel to reinforce it, to make sure that we've got that 5 pounds per square foot to support them, but not a lot of additional money for that. That is not budgeted here right now, but like I said, it's not a lot to add to that, so.
Mark, is that geothermal a requirement now or a recommendation?
It's just, you have to consider it. So like the new high school uses a lot of geothermal stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, they can be very, very efficient. I mean, significantly lower energy costs than conventional systems. So, but there's an upfront cost for it.
Mark, whatever fuel system we use, whether it's gas or oil or whatever, is it hundreds of thousands of dollars to add a heating unit on the floor of the locker room? Because they're always so wet, and if as soon as you put a heated floor in, that problem goes away immediately. Is that really expensive?
It's not. In fact, we're seeing more and more. It's essentially the cost is the tubing to put in the flooring before you pour the concrete, and some controls, and it's not as significantly more expensive. It's not priced in here, but it's not a lot of money, particularly if you're only doing it in an area, small area.
That's wonderful. I would suggest we move forward with that.
Yeah, and honestly, the rule of thumb these days is anytime you replace a bathroom floor at all of any sort, you're always adding heating to the floor in most new builds.
So it's fairly inexpensive, and it delivers heat in a nice consistent way. So we're actually doing a lot of radiant floor heat for a lot of projects where instead of having perimeter radiation, we actually put it in the floor itself.
For big areas.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You did.
Oh my God, that's the greatest thing ever.
It's very comfortable too, so
That can you do towel warmers outside?
add that to your list of
Yeah, fundraising.
fundraising, so.
Add personnel for the up Steve's towel.
In all seriousness though, it would be crazy not to consider solar on a building of that, and there must be rebates for towns and through the state.
As Mark said, there may be work, but
Yeah,
Yeah, there used to be a lot more.
Yeah.
it's changed. The whole net metering thing has changed, and so a lot of these companies that came in and set up with certain expectations of how the market was gonna operate are finding it really challenging right now. So I think that whole industry is just right now in a area of flux, so.
Well, even still, AI is telling us that we're gonna spend about 300,000 on utilities. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's the right thing to do in a lot of ways, so. So when we add up all those division subtotals, you can see that we're like, the difference is about $800,000, not a huge amount. And when you look at the square foot cost, so what I did was just give you, square foot costs are helpful just to approximate, to understand where we are, because a lot of people compare, okay, how much is this costing a square foot? And so we have the general conditions, which is the contractor's costs for their on-site project management, all their on-site labor, their temporary facilities when they're on-site constructing, And so they have a whole range of general conditions that they're required to carry: temporary power, portable toilets, all of that stuff gets wrapped into their cost. So that's 6.5%.
That's not included in the site work? of
Correct, that is
Division
not
31?
included. That's right, that site work is simply the cost to develop the site for the building, not
Okay,
including all the contractor's responsibility. When we reviewed those costs, there was a number carried for the subcontractors' efforts for general conditions. And like all of these, the subcontractors have that, but no, this is the overall for the general contractor's responsibilities for the project itself. Then we have a design contingency, so we have 10% right now added to the cost just because the building hasn't been fully designed. There's a lot of effort that goes between now, and we've had a lot of conversations, but the amount of decision making between now and when you have a set of documents for a contractor to build from is significant. So there, you've got 8 to 10 months worth of design work and decisions and specifications and all that. So we just don't know, and what we don't know, we accommodate with 10%, which is reasonable at this level. We're at a concept design level. And that's real money. And so for things like, well, can we have radiant floor? Can we have, there's just a lot of conversation, what particular type of tile we're using on the wall, all those things right now that just haven't been included in the design because we don't know them yet.
it's more the nitty gritty stuff,
It's a lot of just getting into the decision making of
details.
the details that just, until you're there, we have to accommodate it with a number. And like I said, a 10% is a realistic number to accommodate for that. And then the overhead and profit is the contractor's profit for it. So that's their cost to, or their amount for the profit itself in this. And then bonds and insurance, so they are required to insure the property with builder's risk at the time that they're constructing it should something happen, as well as the requirement that they are bonded by a surety company so that if they go bankrupt, someone comes in and finishes the project and you folks aren't left holding the bag for an insolvent contractor. So that's what those costs are. And then the escalation line is 0, but it's not 0. So I think everyone should realize these are costs for today's dollars, and that we project approximately 6% a year. And so that's real money. And so as you think about going out, because it's not going to be constructed this year, so there's something that needs to be considered for what that escalation, and we all don't know when this might be constructed. So I just put that there for everyone to understand that there is going to be an escalation. Nothing is less expensive than to build than it is today. So, and so the construction total is when you add up the division subtotals and all those markups, and that gives us the total construction cost, and that's where you see 22.1 million versus 23.1. So it's about $1 million difference, all said and done, between the 1-story and the 2-story. And so that's doing my math, it's a little less than 5%, right? It's probably a 4% difference, I think. And then right now, we just plugged in a number of 25% for soft costs. And soft costs are the furnishings and the equipment and fixtures that you need, the technology systems, so buying servers and wireless access points and things like that. So that technology comes in here. Some of the AV system that you're going to need in like the gym and the pool area are going to be part of that. Not everything. Some of the technology is built in the wiring, and the building itself is built into the electrical number that we had. But there is some of that. There is a contingency that you're required, or you should carry, so that as unforeseen items come up during construction, that you have a pot of money to address those design changes that happen during the course of the construction. So there's a contingency for that. And then there's also the fees to pay for design professionals and testing companies and commissioning agents. And so right now, 25% is an assumed value for what those soft costs are on the project. And so that total project cost then comes to somewhere between 27.6 to 28.9. And so and I didn't do the cost per square foot, and I can quickly do that here.
Security be a soft cost, or is that in with the electrical?
some of it, most of it's in the electrical, so if we've got intrusion detection systems in the building and CCTV cameras, that's all built into the electrical. So we're just shy of $800 a square foot total project cost. And interestingly, I was sort of looking at the Bangor YMCA that was, I think people may have seen, that's an 82,000 square foot building that has been announced, and there's some total project costs, which probably also include incidentals above the building, and my guess is that they have fundraising costs in it, and they've got a few other expenses in there, and probably including some endowment for the care of the building itself. But that was advertised by, or the news was, I think, 58 million for that. So I'm just quickly doing the 58 million divided by the 82,000 square feet, and that's $707 a square foot. So it's not that far off, and the difference is there's an economy of scale when you get to 82,000 square feet that a 30,000 square foot building doesn't have. So, but you're in that ballpark. So.
Mark, when you said at the beginning that you were roughly basing this off of the fairground site,
Yes.
when you, just roughly speaking, when you think about what it would be compared to the Forsyth site, are you talking like $5 difference? Maybe $5,000
right.
difference? You know, like how much of a difference, where would we potentially see those differences?
Yep, so I think initially that amount, I wanna say it was like around $500,000 difference between the two. And so so take that 500,000 though, and then apply that markup. And that markup is somebody probably did the math here faster than I, but it's 20 point, well, it's compounding. I'll approximate it as it's 4, 11, 21, I'll say 21%, but it's actually a little more than that because of compounding. That's $600,000 difference. So so it's real money. And that 600,000 over I was gonna say, if you took that divided by the total number of square foot, say 36,000. That's $16 a square foot, I think, right there. That's real numbers.
Or can I ask a question of, can we go back to the escalation
Yes.
for a minute?
Yep.
Is that 6% based on the total project cost?
Yes, correct.
So if we wanted to like project, you know, if this doesn't happen for 3 years, then we need to.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
alright.
yeah, that's an excellent question. So for instance, the contingency usually is a percentage of the construction, so that always grows when the construction cost grows. The fees that you pay for professional services, that increases. Now the question is whether or not a chair is gonna cost 6% more next year than it does this year. There'll be some growth in it, depends on what's going on in the economy and tariffs and a whole bunch of other things, right?
And salaries. It's not to say that salaries are gonna go up by 6%.
I like to yeah.
Dream.
Well, yeah, right. I like to also tell people, like, for instance, so cost of health care for our employees goes up, and so it's not even just salaries that go up. We are constantly having to pay, so as you know, as design professionals, which is part of the fees, that in the future our costs go up every year too, because we've got utilities to pay and we've got healthcare costs to pay that rise and all those things. So yeah, so there's a lot of that.
Thank you.
So what would you say are the next steps from us?
Well, I think what I heard early on is that you folks needed some of this information, and not necessarily for tonight, but to make your decision about, there's a preference for the 2-story option because of the advantage of having an elevated walking track and some of the other benefits of having that 2-story building. And so I think the question is in the next step is for you folks to land on where you want. What I need to do is continue to evolve a design. And I think what we said last time is that you need to be able to at least be able, when folks ask if you've considered alternatives, that you have the information, that you have considered alternatives, and so that's what some of this information is intended to provide you. So it's our first real deep dive into what the costs are. We've been square foot costing it for a long time, and now we actually have done a quantified takeoff of what the cost of the construction would be.
So if I can recap that to make sure I understand it. We have, what you need from us to be able to put together the final report that we're going to present to the select board for the end of this phase is for us to come together, decide which of the two building designs and which of the two locations we would recommend going forward with, so that you can then create the final report. Not that it necessarily means that's where we're going or the building that we're building, just this would be our recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, yep.
Yeah,
Final report subject to change.
Final report
Subject to change, right. It's a lot of work for us to continue to try to design two
Yeah,
designs,
right,
and so it needs to be a design, but we try to give you enough information at the conceptual level for you to be able to say, okay, yeah, this is this.
A design and a location based on the information you've provided at this point.
Not that you can't change your mind in the
Yeah.
future, but
Okay.
that to finalize our work, unless you wanna extend it a little longer and pay us to design two concept designs.
The number that comes to my head is the 80%, the two sites are 80% difference, like.
Is that what approximately, yeah, that sounds,
Yeah, that's what he
yeah,
had said
yeah,
something about,
yeah.
so if one was 100,000, the other would be 80,000.
right,
Kind of a,
yeah.
but how do we move forward knowing what the prices are gonna be in the two different locations?
Well, so if you want, I can even, I can run, I guess the numbers both ways. I can run the numbers on the, on both different sites, I guess. So right now, I just ran the numbers with the more expensive, just because, I wanna make sure that we cover the cost of, if you folks said, well, we want that, the more expensive site, then I'll make sure that the budget represents that, so. See, we've already done kind of some numbers, I think, right?
22,
Yeah.
400.
Yeah. So I can plug it into the spreadsheet and give you the spreadsheet once you decide what that site is, or I can give you both. Like, this is the site, fairgrounds, and this is, so.
I feel like, and maybe you're looking for more detail, but I kind of feel like we have enough high level detail right now, and we have a rough estimate what the difference is between the first and the second, and a rough estimate what the difference is between the two sites. So I think we just all need to come to agreement.
Well, I think my initial concern is between the two sites, are we going to have an agreement with the Fairground Association? If we don't, then we can't recommend that site, right?
We can still recommend it, it's not up to us to decide whether or not we have an agreement with the fairground site. We're just saying, based on the information that Mark has provided to us, our recommendation would be.
Well, I understand that, but
Based on my understanding, and we're not gonna have an agreement with the fairgrounds before
No.
we have a design.
no, I understand that, but
My understanding of the last discussions when Pam and I were at the fairgrounds in May is that they're willing to talk to us.
Yeah.
And they're willing to look for something that'd be mutually beneficial, not a guarantee that they work with us, but certainly not a saying they won't. I think if we decided that is our preferred site, I think we could work something out.
okay, all right, that's what I needed to know.
From the discussions in May, ideally, they'd like the access road to go between the football field and in essence, the wetlands that are there.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure if there's enough space for that, but maybe there would be if the announcing tower was moved, so that would be part of it.
John and I, after last meeting, went over and took a look, and we think there is room to get the access road there. Yep.
I know someone with a drone that can get some measurements for you.
One other piece is, actually, let me run upstairs, get some diagrams, and I'll tell you one other piece.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I guess my next question, Mark, is we had tentatively said that we were going to do our next presentation to the select board on October 2nd.
Mhm.
How quickly do you need our final decision so that you can move forward with creating that?
Yeah, finalizing the information on our end, so as soon as possible, I guess I would say.
Okay.
There's not a lot of time between now and then, I've got on here,
We've got 2 more meetings scheduled.
correct.
And Mark will help with the location now, but I mean, to me, this was shocking, that there wasn't a larger difference between the two, so feel like at this point, the 2-story is the only way to go. I mean, with that small of a difference at that high a number of a price, I mean, if it was, you know, a little bit more significant, then maybe there would be a similar to the location. It's
I
only a
think if it came back and it
$600,000
was a-
difference.
$10 million difference, then maybe we should.
Absolutely.
But if, a one, I don't think that one's gonna make or break the decision of the community either way. I think it's gonna be,
No, it's already gonna be
Yeah.
tough stuff.
This doesn't use GIS or AutoCAD, this was PowerPoint and draw.
Hey, it's depicted information, which just doesn't matter how, it's got good color.
Oh.
So what this is something we put together last week for a meeting with the Mid-Coast Council of Governments. And it's kind of a potential vision for the future for Topsham of ways to get it more interconnected for pedestrians, bikes, recreation, maybe coming to work. The yellow highlight is the railroad track that the state has approved for bike and pedestrian. The way they wrote the legislation right now, it could not be used for ATVs, snowmobiles, stuff like that. And then the pink are things we're doing this summer. So that's, someone asked what's going on in Elm Street. So upgrading the sidewalks there, and they're gonna put better lines in for bikes too and stuff. The big, right now my dispute with Brunswick is that Elm Street where the railroad trestle crosses. So I'm trying to push that as we consider this lower road trail, we take down that railroad trestle so that we could have the lower road trail come down to grade level at Elm Street for 2 reasons. One is it connects Elm Street to the rest of the town and Elm Street to that. The second is you can already cross the river on the Merrimack Bridge because the current Androscoggin bike path ends at the other side of the overpass. And Brunswick got mad and they said that they think part of the vision is the trail needs to go over the black trestle, which my guess would add tens of millions of dollars to the lower road trail, and it doesn't get you down to ground level Topsham. But the people at MCOG are like my idea better. So that's something, the other, because our bike pedestrian committee is really frustrated because at the trestle, you've got almost no sidewalk and really no bike lane there.
Yeah.
So to make better connections, eventually it'd be nice to take the trestle down and widen the road a little bit. So Elm Street is being worked on now. As you saw, we've got Forsyth Field. Only thing we're waiting for now is the guardrail. So we've got the bike and pedestrian areas added there. The guardrail should go in sometime in September. The blue is the areas we have existing sidewalk up Middlesex Road as far as Tedford, and obviously up Forsyth Field as far as where we're currently going. And then the green is the multimodal path. This one that goes from here at Town Hall, and then it connects to Community Way, connects to purple there. And then the other green is goes up Village Drive, and then goes down the part of K&M that used to be Mountain Road. And then it connects to regular sidewalks for the rest of K&M, and then the sidewalks on K&M all the way as it gets to Route 201. The other place we've got red here is way back at the end of Tedford Road. We finally got permission from the US Army Corps of Engineers today. Hopefully the contractor's gonna break ground quick, because he needs to get it done by October, be out of the water. But that's gonna have, we've got easements from neighbors to give us an extra 6 feet, so that we can also have sidewalk. We're doing that as part of our culvert project. And then we're starting to put together an RFP. We've got a preliminary design for Tedford Road. And we had a neighborhood meeting. Everyone wants the sidewalks on the western side of the road. And we've got a plan that's detailed enough that we've skipped the arborvitaes for the people that wanted their arborvitaes skipped. But now we need to have the plan done with all the drainage work and stuff, so that we could actually put it out to bid and something to build from. 2 pieces that we need are missing is Audubon Way, so that's the upper purple. Our vision is eventually that would connect to Village Drive, to Tedford Road. So then you could get from the schools without having to go on 201 on the bypass, and go up Can-Am to Village Drive, come down, take Audubon over. The owner of the Highlands just brought plans in for the memory care facility at Audubon. And he's again committed that eventually they'd like that to be a public road and to build the sidewalks and the bike stuff in there as part of that. So that's mostly just waiting for the memory care facility to be viable. And that piece will hopefully be there. The other piece that's always been intended to be done is to connect the path that starts here and ends at Community Way, the rest of the way, so that it can get down to the Aingestocken River Bike Path. In this picture, I've got it eventually getting to the railroad tracks, if the railroad tracks are gonna become a trail. About half of that would be on the property that we own, the town. The other half would need to come across property that the fairgrounds owns. Right now, the state is about to take public comment, their final public comment before they put things out to bid to widen Route 196 to 4 lanes. And I tried to convince them to put bike path next to the right of way. But unfortunately, there isn't enough room there because of the wetlands area behind the football field was preserved when they built the bypass for environmental reasons. So they didn't want to tangle with trying to get permitting to mess with a thing that was already built previously. So there isn't room for the path that way. So ideally, if we were to put the facility in the football, we probably want beside our access road to get in to put bike or bike or pedestrian access there, so that would get us to our property where we can finish it, get it to the railroad tracks. So this is all just pieces that we're working on one piece at a time, but it's an idea at least for everything east of 201 to try to get better connectivity for bikes and pedestrians. So back to your question, Lynn. I think the thing that would be helpful for this committee to weigh is, I think there's probably a way to find an agreement with the fairgrounds. I think there's enough things in common that we can find something, especially if we can stay on the backside of the football field and not have to. The fairgrounds really would like to try to keep the general public using it as a cut through, and rightly so.
Right.
So if we could just keep our access to the backside of the football field, I think we could find some type of arrangement to be mutually beneficial. But what would be useful for this group to weigh is it more important to have the site next to that trail, assuming that trail is eventually going to be built? Or is it more important to have the site next to our playing fields and where our other rec stuff is? Because I think that's a useful decision to be made. I'm not at liberty right now to say where it is, but there's a potential site that we could also have, maybe for no more cost than these other two, that would be right near the schools.
Sure, just throw another wrench into it, Mark.
So, but that site it hasn't been offered yet.
Okay.
It would probably be considerably cheaper because it would be right next to the road where there's water and sewer.
Yeah.
And it would be close to the schools, so it'd be easier for kids to get there.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be next to the trail, so we couldn't use the parking lot to double for access to the trail. And it also wouldn't be next to our playing fields, would it be nice to have all our, I think there's a lot to be said for having all our rec stuff at one location. So you could have the people running the programs next to the fields and everything else. So in my mind, I don't think this, even if the site was cheaper because it's right next to the road and the schools, I don't think it's got the benefits of the other two sites personally.
Are you allowed to tell us like how big the parcel is?
Similar size.
Okay.
Something over coffee or?
Are you, when you say near the schools, are you saying middle school and high school?
That's right.
Yeah, not the elementary school.
Yeah.
Is this dot that's to the northwest? Is that the Red Cross building? Cause you've got the Highlands and Cadigan Lodge, and then you've got the potential community center site,
American Red Cross is here.
is that,
I think that dot,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, actually.
That's the football field.
I think what it is was I typed in the address into Google Maps.
oh, okay,
It came up with
alright.
that, so.
Oh, yeah, I
You-
see
you can
American
just
Red
write it
Cross
down.
now, yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
okay.
like you are here dot.
It's a you are here doc, there you go, okay. Kathy, didn't you say that your husband worked on the fairgrounds property and that there's plenty of space between the
Since
road?
1982.
Yeah. But
This
it
is a good time to approach them again. We had a great fair, so well-running board. One of the ladies that was dead against it is not on the board. And they're not talking about it at all in their meetings, so it would be up to you to reignite the conversation and say you're willing to go back and talk. Because they don't mention it at all.
Which is probably okay, because we're not ready for them yet.
Right.
But it would be useful, though, before I go back to them, actually, I almost think I want two things to happen before I go to them again, because I don't want to lead them down a path that maybe isn't gonna happen. I want you guys to first decide what site you like better, and then we need the select board to fly into the next phase, I think, before we go back.
that makes sense.
I just mean before they all go to Florida for the winter.
Oh,
Oh, well, that's what Zoom and FaceTime and everything is for.
Well, I think I tend to go back to the mission statement of what we have originally set out to do. And I'll just read it because I think it's applicable. The mission of the Community Center Committee is to understand the desires and needs of the Topsham community to identify accessible, affordable, sustainable recreational solutions that will serve the multi-generational community and social connections among Topsham citizens. And to me, that's the fairgrounds. So I vote fairgrounds, because I think that it meets a multi-generational component, that keeping it around the fields, I think there's a lot of people who don't connect with sports. And if you have to go to the fields where there's lots of people, you have to get through that. If that's not your thing, it's not going to be as open and inviting. So that's where I stand. I think it meets the general needs of the Topsham community to be at the fairgrounds.
I like the fairgrounds location too, because I feel like by putting it near the sport fields, it's going to automatically be associated with another athletic facility. And then those people who, like you said, are not as athletic, are not as drawn to those types of activities, are going to write it off because it's not.
Not gonna be as inviting.
It's right, and it's closer, fairgrounds is closer to the Highlands.
Yep.
And if
Closer
these
to
walking
schools.
paths are going to happen, the accessibility piece in our mission statement is there.
Can I make a
I tend to
suggestion?
agree.
And chairpersons can tell me if they disagree, but I almost feel like we just go around, because we haven't really had an open vote. Should we just go through and see if, is anybody thinking one story, is anybody thinking other than the fairgrounds? So we know if we have something to talk about, or would you prefer to not do it in the meeting itself?
I'm good with that, are you good with that?
So I'd vote two-story fairgrounds.
I would vote two-story.
I would third that, and part of the reason too, I just wanna clarify a little bit, even though we have the word recreational in our mission statement, that doesn't mean sports, and I think we have to be very clear on that our intent is to make this multi-generational and for use of all ages and all types of possible interests that we can, so I vote 2 stories fairground field.
I was siding with Mark and then Kim brought up a great point, which what we just reiterated. But I also consider recovery costs, and I think the more we're losing $500,000, the best opportunity to grow or to cut that would be at the fairgrounds because of the accessibility for sure. But I 100%, so let's just, I'll throw this out there. when they laugh at us when we say we need $35 million. A $35 million project would be much better at the fairgrounds, in my opinion, but we have to go with a smaller project that takes away a pool or something like that, then I think it would be Forsyth. So I'm going with 2-story and fairgrounds.
Alright, definitely 2-story, and I will admit from the beginning, I've been split 50-50, and I really haven't been able to make up my mind, but based on the conversations I've had with everyone and the points you're making tonight, I am leaning towards fairgrounds, so that's what my vote is.
Kathy?
I also think the 2-story makes sense because the difference was not that different between 1 and 2. And all of our visions fell into place with the 2-story, so definitely yes. As far as the fairgrounds, to me, whether you start with a small building and have room to grow, I think that's the best location. We have we have more space there than we do at the Forsyth Road Fields.
I agree. I was split right from the beginning. I see benefits to both, but I leave here after all of our conversations feeling more and more like the fairgrounds is the
It's unanimous.
There you go, Mark, there's your answer.
Let me just ask one further question.
Oh,
If
We
this,
already voted, Mark.
if this 20-acre piece materialized that's near the schools and would probably even 500,000 cheaper than the Forsyth Field one, so maybe,
So it'd be over $1 million.
yeah, would that change anything for anyone?
my question would be, do we have any idea at all as a time frame? Like when would we potentially know?
October, would we know by October 2nd?
No.
Okay.
And in
is
fact,
there?
my guess is it would be 2 or 3 years down the road.
Oh, okay,
For sure.
yeah.
I mean, in my mind, I still just don't think it's got the merit. You know, while it's closer to the school, the beautiful thing about the fairground site is it can also serve as our parking lot for the trail, and as the point you guys made up, all the interconnections better from there too. For everyone else other than the junior high schools.
None of us can picture a 20-acre lot near the high school where.
And my immediate thought, sorry.
It's okay.
My immediate thought was closer to the schools, again, like with the, you know, with the Forsyth location, if it's at Forsyth, are people going to think it's sports? If it's near the schools, are people going to think, oh, well, it's geared toward kids? And we've got sports and we've got kids. We need multi-generational. And I think that central location
And Mark, did we,
is best.
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't part of like the comprehension plan is to kind of model like downtown Brunswick to have a main
Certainly, you wanna make
center
as
of
central
town,
as
right?
possible.
Yeah. So I think that, to me, that's an important part because you can't get much closer to Main Street Topsham than the fairgrounds location.
And you've got the visibility there too.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's on Forsyth, who goes down Forsyth? People who are going to the library or going to sports
The dog.
or the dog or live down there. I mean, really,
And it's not even really enforcement, we have the hill. So.
right, so.
And thinking back, what jumped out at me, because I will say, like Heather and Kim, I've been very 50-50. And one week we talk about it, Forsyth all the way, and then next week it's something different, but the mission of the community center is to understand the desires and needs of the Topsham community. There's a lot of our community that does not want it on Forsyth Road. So, and I think that's a big thing that we have to take into consideration. I think the fairgrounds provides us an opportunity to build something that the whole community can benefit from, but not impact so closely those that live in that neighborhood. Like it's
not going to be in anybody's backyard.
exactly.
I would be more likely to consider the 20 acres near the school than I would be to consider Forsyth. So I think that by meeting the needs of the younger population in the community, that would meet check a lot of boxes for a lot of people. Because even the elderly are going to want the children to have a place to go, and I think it would check a lot of boxes for people, so I am interested in that location, to know about it as the time goes by.
I would be more interested in learning about that because one of the things we've talked about is the accessibility to the kids and,
Yeah.
you know, the dangers of crossing the busy roads to get to the Foreside or to get to the fairground location. And that would, I mean, the mystery location would possibly solve that. If it's close to the schools, you know, it would be more easily accessible, but.
Well, again, I think we're just saying which site and which building we want to move forward with to put into our proposal to present to the
Right.
select board.
Right.
At this point in
And
time.
at this point, again, we don't get to say.
Right.
So the unknown location is.
A little more good news is, as part of the widening, the state's committed to, they're gonna reevaluate the intersection at Village Drive and, Community Way, see if they can do better pedestrian crossing there. And then if the global rail trail happens, we're actually gonna be going underneath the highway at that location.
Yeah.
So there'd be maybe two ways that are relatively safe to get across. We also have $400,000 that was part of a Highland Green TIF the town got 3 or 4 years ago. That's just sitting there waiting to be spent for pedestrian crossing on 196. So that could potentially go to one or the other of these services with it too.
Like an overpass, like over it.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that for $400,000.
That's what we can't stop on the bypass any more than we already do. That's what I'm worried about. Well, technically, you already have sidewalks from the middle school and the high school all the way down to, you just need to add one from the American Red Cross to the community center.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And that, what is it, a mile, maybe, mile and a half from the potential site and call it the stadium field?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kids
So
should be
Mark,
walking more.
Yeah, that helps,
Anything
it's
else
very
you
helpful, no, that
That,
gives me what I need for the next step in my development, so
anything else you need for feedback from us before we meet on September 8th?
I don't think so. I think I've got enough to sort of push to the next, so we have the 8th,
And the 22nd,
22nd.
but the
Yeah.
8th is at 6 o'clock,
Sure.
the 22nd is at 5:15, that's at least what we've scheduled.
6 o'clock on the
the
8th, yeah, and 5:15 on the
22nd,
22nd, and then on the 24th is when the material is owed Mark to you to include in their packet.
No, there's no, 1st October.
Yeah. So, good,
Okay.
all right. Thank you. Very,
thank you.
very good conversation.
All right, can we review the minutes from July 21st? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon again.
As we glance over these before we put a motion in, I just something to select,
He was still in the meeting, but he left the room.
Oh,
on the back page of or page 2 or whatever, depending on how your minutes are printed, mark to see if another fundraising consultant could be found. I kind of forgot about that, but I did do, I did reach out to a local resident who has, a fundraising business. And I asked her about the possibility of meeting, and she said in her email that in all honesty, you need a fundraising consultant who specializes specifically in designing, launching, and managing capital campaigns. It's a detailed process, and you want someone with experience working with municipalities and or libraries, et cetera. It's a unique donor audience. I've participated in a few campaigns as a team member, responsible for donor solicitations and communications, designing, staging donor awareness and fundraising events. But the planning and feasibility studies are best done by someone who has a strong portfolio of that specific work. That said, I'd be more than happy to meet with you for a free consultation to share what I know and answer some basic questions about the process if that's helpful. She said there may be a place for me in this project down the road to work on fundraising events during the campaign, and I can fill you in on those details as well. I think her son graduated with Adam and Andrew, CC Danforth.
It could.
Yeah, I didn't know if that would ring a bell. So, you know, I told her that we were meeting tonight and I would let you guys know. And if we wanna meet with her, if we wanna hold off or what. I don't think we're quite there yet to meet with her.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we have, when I think about what, and it's just my opinion, but when I think about the presentation compared to what we presented at the end of phase 2, I see a similar format where we walk through what Mark Lee presents.
Yeah.
We walk through what we've discovered so far as funding options.
Yeah.
Just to say that we've had all these conversations.
Right, and I think when we present to the board, I mean, we have one estimate. I mean, you can always say that it's still
We've
a work
reached
in
out to
progress.
allow people from the community to meet with us.
Yeah.
We've met with somebody that does this as a full-time option.
Yeah.
We've met with another community, we've chatted with another person
Yeah.
that does this on a part-time basis. So we have quite a few avenues that we've covered
Right,
to be able to say we've started to dig into it.
exactly, and I think that's probably good at this phase, unless anyone disagrees.
I feel like the board is gonna look at the number and then they're gonna say, and then we're kind of gonna say, can we have money to pay for a fundraising person? Because we're gonna have to tell them about that too. So if they look at that number and say, even if you found a fundraiser to lessen the load, it won't be worth it. So that might be.
Yeah, what if they say no completely on October 2nd? Do we have the opportunity to say, well, wait a minute, can we do a smaller building? Would you be flexible if we left off the pool? I mean, are they gonna say no? Are they gonna say the?
Yeah, it's hard to predict, and we also have 2 seats open right now, that are gonna be new members come November, so. Right now, only 2 people taking up papers. for the
There-
2 seats.
Those two people aren't running for reelection?
Right, Marie and Matt
Matt?
are not running for reelection,
Oh, interesting.
and Mike Labby has taken out papers and returned them. And then a guy named Dave Kenny has taken out papers, they haven't been back yet.
I don't know, Matt. Wasn't saying.
So I would think that there will be a dialogue, you know, I don't think it's probably gonna be a all yes or all no. I could see something like, or advocate something like, let's put a period of time in to see how much money we can fundraise. I did talk to Phil, the town attorney, and he said, yeah, we could set up a fund that basically the money is gifts are conditional. So that if for some reason it doesn't go ahead, the money could be, you know, maybe things over a certain threshold get returned.
But how do we do that if we have to pay for the fundraising consultant?
They may decide they're willing to, see, the hard thing, I put in the capital budget money for development, because Mark said the next phase is a certain percentage plan. So we've got money in our capital that could be used for any number of projects, there isn't enough money to fund all the projects, but
Right.
the select board can choose what they want to go to. There's no money in there to hire a fundraising consultant right now. So depending on the cost, maybe that could come out of the community center fund, you know, the thing we paid Mark out of, that money that was set aside for the community stuff. But it might have to wait to next town meeting, you know, to put in the budget or something to pay a fundraising consultant.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm considering working on, or I've been talking to TDI a lot, and anytime people talk about the developers, like there's a group that's now investigating developing, the Allen property across 295. And when I say meet with these people and they start talking about, we like that TIF, I'm like, I want a TIF that can pay for our community center. Right now, there's specific language in the legislation that can't. But I've been talking to Matt Eddy with Midcoast Council of Governments, and he's willing to help push, let's say we started legislative work to try to amend the statute so that we could use it for recreation building. Dan Stevenson, that's the head of the MRA, has also said he'd be willing to help draft the language or something. He spent a lot of time at TIFs. So one avenue to pay for this might be to try to change the TIF statute so we can use TIF money towards this. And then as someone new comes into town, as part of the TIF, the money goes towards this, which means we'd have such a big hit on people's tax bills to pay for this. The other thing that's happened is I think most of you, we talked about the proposal for the Bissett Farm for the battery storage facility. They came on July 3rd, they made their pitch. The select board said they would like to continue it. We met with the planning board last Thursday night to find out, there's a couple of different ways, zoning ways we could make it happen. One is to create a use and then accompanying regulations. The other is to allow something called contract zoning, which gives us more flexibility on, easier to predict or to deal with unforeseen things too. But the planning board doesn't like contract zoning, they said last Thursday night. So, but now I know which way they want us to start drafting. So we're gonna meet with CPIC, they're meeting in September, get their preference, although it's really the planning boards that matters the most. All this has to be an endorsement from the planning board for it gets on top meeting board. But assuming they choose, say, yeah, let's go ahead and work in a particular way, then we're gonna start drafting and getting stuff ready. May or may not be plugged into the recode, depending on how thick the recode goes. But I envision by next town meeting, having what we need to do on the warrant for things to work for business. The other thing we found out in our research, some of which the intern's done, and some of it's meetings and phone calls that I've been having, is there's a battery storage facility that's built in Gorham, and the town and the developers were assuming different things. The town was assuming that this $300 million facility was going to be taxable, and so they'd get taxes on the whole thing. The developers were assuming it was gonna be taxed as personal property and qualify for the business equipment tax reimbursement. So they're basically paying like nothing for taxes, and then the state would be reimbursing Gorham half of what they would have had otherwise. Gorham legislators put in a bill last January, and they said they wanted to make it clear that these facilities didn't qualify for the business equipment tax exemption, so that they could make sure they got their tax money coming in. The Gorham developers testified against it. In the end, the compromise that was reached was that anyone that had an interconnection agreement to ISO New England as of January 1st, 2025, and basically places that exist, could get business equipment tax exemption. So Gorham was a little disappointed because they're only gonna get half of the tax credit that they thought, and so they were coming from the state as opposed to getting 100% from the developer.
That's a different developer though than the one that wants to develop it here in
Right.
Topsom.
Although the one that wants to develop in Topsom, it's probably not gonna be the one that's actually gonna run it. For lack of a better term, I'll call it permit flippers. These guys, it's an investment model they have, where they go around the country and they get all the permits lined up and they sell them to someone to build the facility. So, but in my mind, if we can make the zoning work, even if it doesn't work out with these guys, someone new is gonna come to the business. Because these are already the second people that went to the business, because the business site is so valuable because it's right next to the CMP,
Right.
former Maine Yankee lines. So I'm kind of focusing on this part first.
Right.
The other interesting thing that happened on July 3rd was the person they sent to meet with us last October, we said, what's this facility worth? She said, oh, it'll be about 300 million. So if I do the math at our tax rate, that's over $3 million a year in taxes, which could pay for a bond for the type of building we're talking about and still have money left for tax relief. But when they came on July 3rd, their representatives said, they're talking about they'd like to do a TIF with the town, and the town would get 7.5 million over like the 20-year lifespan of the lease with the business. And I'm like, that math isn't quite what I was expecting. So I asked the person that was, I said, how much is this facility worth? Anyway, this person wouldn't say. Well, we don't like to release that information. I said, well, I was told in October, it's roughly 300 million. From what I understand in Gorham, it's roughly, that's what it's there. And then one of the higher ups in the company that was participating by Zoom, he's like, ballpark, that's right. But message I took from that, there's definitely gonna be a lot of negotiation going on. And I'm not, especially if the TIF statute can't be changed, I don't think I want this as a TIF. Because I'd rather have the general tax revenue coming in that we can use to pay for the community center and everything else. So, long story short, I think there's a lot of stuff that can get materialized in the next 18 months. So at the same time, maybe we're trying to do fundraising. It's time to chase down some of these things, whether it be amending the TIF statute or finding whether business is gonna come to town or finding out if this battery storage thing's really gonna work. I think there's other ways that will come forward to potentially come up with some other revenue so that we're not looking at a 10% tax increase or something.
Right. Is it, I know you said that in June of 2026, right? We're not gonna have any bonds, we're gonna be, nothing, correct, is that correct?
We have 1 year left of one.
1 year left, okay, all right.
We have one that'll get paid off this year and one that'll pay off.
Okay, is there anything coming down the pike that, other than potentially a bond for community center?
For the most part, our facilities are in good shape. And
Yeah.
the thing is though, every now and then, you need fire trucks and stuff. you know. And eventually the HVA system on this, the HC on this building will be replaced. And so the things come up, but certainly this is the only real big thing on the horizon.
Okay.
I think the thing to remember is that thinking back to what you said, Steve, they're gonna see that number and they're gonna say, no way. I think it comes down to the story that we tell. And so we have a lot of data that supports the fact that, what did we say, like 90% of our community wants some sort of community center. And based on all the information we have gathered, and we have a lot of data, says that we feel as the committee, this meets the majority of the needs of the people that we have been talking to for 6 years. So, and I think if we tell that story, it's not gonna, I mean, obviously, nothing's gonna get built until the town votes on it, but will they approve us to move on to phase 3 or 4, whatever phase we're at? But whatever, will they approve us to move on to the next phase
Right.
based on what we've said right now? Maybe.
Well, it's also based on, are they thinking the same thing that Mark, you just told us?
Well, and I
Do
mean,
they have all that information?
They've had different pieces at different times. They obviously sat for the presentation with the battery storage farm, and they heard all that. They know that we're limited, we've had a lot of workshops with them on TIF stuff, because we just did all the stuff for Dave Holman's TIF over here. And the thing I preach to them, which they seem to understand, is that if we're gonna do a TIF, we need to be able to have legitimate expenses to use the town's share on to really get the benefit of the TIF. We've got a bunch of TIFs right now that we're not, we can't even maximize because the purposes you're allowed to aren't things we need. You know, like one of them, almost all these TIFs is a thing for public bus service. Well, a public bus service would end up being a big draw, you know, on our general tax revenues. So it's like, I don't wanna start something that's gonna cost more money, you know, I wanna try to pay for things we would need anyway. So what we've done with Dave Holman's TIF for the town share is, nice thing about affordable housing TIF is you're allowed to use it for education expenses. So the new one at Hackensack Road, right now, John Hodge, now some of these kids aren't quite school age yet, but there's like, I think about 16 kids right now, they're gonna be living in that one. It costs, or you're allowed to allocate over 20,000 a year per kid. Now that TIF's only gonna raise 28,000 this year, but I have absolutely no problem using all the money because we're just going to school money. So the one here on Dave Holman's that's gonna go to the voters in November, that one is one of the allowed purposes, because it's an affordable housing TIF, would be to spend money on education expenses. And then we've got it built in, because Dave's found, he's got a fair amount of, people that are elderly that actually moved in his place in Brunswick. So kind of like my fallback is, we're making an argument, which I think will carry the day, is that this will be either our first or second 4-story building in town. So it needs a ladder truck to effectively rescue people if you have a fire or something. Now, a ladder truck's nice if you have a 1-story building even that's burning, because you can fight it from above. But if you're trying to do rescues or something in a 4-story building, you absolutely have to have a ladder truck. So to the extent we can't use it all in a particular year for schools, then I can take the money and put it in a reserve for a pro rata share of the ladder truck. For the future, because our ladder truck's gonna be replaced in the next 10 years.
So is it appropriate for you to be part of the presentation and like add some of this stuff? So we can like,
Well, what
maybe
happened-
like connect the dots.
I'll get asked my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
What happened the last time was Steve and I presented, Mark Lee answered questions, and then once we were all done, Mark came in and said, my proposal based on working with the committee was.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is that we, just like the last one, we'll need a charge, and I'm anticipating a charge being, how are you gonna come up with the money for that, et cetera. So what are we able to share at that
And
October
per
2nd
Ann's
meeting?
suggestion, we wrote our charge and we put it.
I understand that,
So I think we can do the same thing.
okay, great. And we'll do that in our planning meetings.
I can also talk to Mary Beth and, with the thought going forward that if we start fundraising before we have other major decisions, say, hey, we can do it with the knowledge that if this doesn't go through, the people will donate, the donors will get their funds back, right? And I can speak to her and say, hey, you quoted us X amount of dollars, how can we pay you? Can we pay you like maybe a percentage to start out with? And I don't know if that might be helpful too, instead of the whole amount up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd love to think about that one. Because we're not allowed to, spend money unless it's approved by town meeting. So whether it's we're paying a percentage on each take, or whether paying a big chunk, it's still town funds being expended.
Okay.
But that also would need to be part of the
Yeah.
presentation.
So what would the charge be for Mark Lee after October 2nd?
I think we can.
To the extent, if he has a charge, what he was telling me, the next step, I think he calls it a 15% plan. So then they start doing all the finance stuff he was talking about that comes up. He could better explain what this than me, but it's basically a more complex plan, better handle on what all the costs are, doing some of these design details so that we know that the fine tuning decisions, so the contingency is less unpredictable or expected. So,
I know it's getting late, but if everything goes through fine, does Harriman Associates hire out all that stuff? Is he responsible of hiring
Actually,
everything
the
on that
next step
list?
for this 15% plan, I think, from what he told me, it's probably around 200 grand. So we'd have to go to RFP again. So the next step
Oh,
for the design would be to RFP, which it might well be Harriman, if you got it, but we need, because of the money involved, we have to put it out and see who applies, and you guys would probably interview people.
and how does contributions from local businesses fit into that? Like, we have 3 concrete companies in town, and how can they contribute to the concrete cost if Mark hires a concrete company? I don't understand how it works if people wanna donate.
I always say there's probably, maybe you would have to apply for a catered charge. So the charge part of it could be developing the 15% plan, or recruiting, finding, selecting a consultant. And then the other part could be starting on the fundraising part. And maybe we can find a way to pay for some of it now, and maybe it has to be beginning with you guys, and then it switches to someone after town meeting, but it's a fundraising money.
Well, that was a very long sidetrack to see if anybody had adjustments to the
Sorry,
July
I
21st.
gotta kick that off, sorry.
Gosh.
Anyone wanna make a motion to accept the minutes from the whatever meeting it was, July?
July 21st.
Heather made a motion.
I made a motion to
I
accept
second
the
the
minutes.
motion.
As they are.
Approved.
Second the emotion.
Motion to just.
Oh, wait, follow-up action steps.
Oh, sorry.
So we need to start preparation for presentation to the select board, but I think that we will wait until after September 8th to see
Yeah.
where Mark's at.
Yeah.
Heather is going to still run the ChatGPT budget without the tool, just so we have it as a reference.
Great.
And then he's gonna schedule some time with Mark Waltz to find other potential adjustments that can maybe make our budget not look so sad.
Before you do that, with Steve's recommendation, can you do it on the adjusted square footage?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you,
Yeah,
cause it's not 50.
Yeah, so I'll recreate it and I'll recreate it, I'll update the criteria and then I'll make a second one without.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, perfect, thank you so much. Mark, this was extremely helpful, thank you, because I'm a visual person and that's top notch.
I was getting teased at the Midcoast Council of Government meetings, we had like 40 people there. You're up to Waldeboro, someone decides to start picking on my PowerPoint version of the chart.
Yeah.
Hey, it works.
So
okay.
next meeting is September 8th at 6 p.m.
Yes.
All right,
I'll
and
make
we
a
are
motion.
adjourned at 7:09.
Yeah.
Hold on.